The advice in this video will help you become a better support player in Smite. In this video, I wanted to try something a little different from my other guides. I'm still going to cover a few tips that will help you improve your gameplay, but after that I wanted to cover some do's and don'ts by analyzing one of my recent support games where I played really bad. As always, I will only be covering information that I feel is not meta dependent and can be applied to all seasons. The first tip is itemization. Good support players will rarely go the exact same build 2 games in a row. Your builds need to be versatile to adapt to different situations and team comps. Experiment with different items and god picks to find what works best for each game. If the enemy team has 4 physical gods, pick up a sovereignty early on, especially if their only magical damage is the support. Emperor's armor can be a huge help for sieges, whether you're pushing the enemy base or defending your own. Midgardian Mail is a great item into auto attack heavy teams, and you should definitely look towards spectral armor when multiple enemies are building crit. These are just a few examples, and learning how to properly itemize takes time. I'm thinking about making a separate video on the topic, so let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Number 2, map control. After the initial laning phase, supports will roam and act as a facilitator for their teammates. If one of your allies keeps getting their buff invaded, you need to try to be there on time to help out. You should also purchase wards to help control vision on the map, which helps your team avoid ganks and coordinate plays more effectively. A lot of support characters are effective gankers and can help their laners get a lead. Objectives are also key to map control, and you need to understand when it is a good time to go for them. While map awareness is important, map control goes a step further and is something support players definitely want to master. Tip 3. Understand your job. I consider support to be one of the hardest roles to master in Smite because they have to make lots of complex decisions that will influence the game for better or worse. Even before the match starts, picking a god that synergizes well with your team comp and counters the enemy can make a huge difference. You have to know when and where to rotate because being in the wrong spot can make you effectively useless. Understanding how to spend your gold effectively is essential to maximizing your potential. You also need to have good mechanics and awareness so that you don't waste your crowd control. Characters like Athena, for example, only have 1 hard CC in their kit, and it is extremely critical that you use it correctly. In teamfights, you have to know when it's time to initiate, peel for your teammates, or disengage. All of these decisions have a huge impact on the game. Just like in other roles, it's also important to understand which jobs your character does best, so try out different picks and figure out what works for your playstyle. 4. Teamwork. As a support player, it is very hard, if not impossible, to carry a game all by yourself. However, a good support player can have a huge impact in deciding the outcome of a match. Your role is designed to give your team the upper hand by helping your allies survive and enabling them to make plays. This requires a high degree of teamwork and coordination, so make sure to communicate effectively with your team and work together to gain an advantage. Tip 5. Maintain a positive attitude. As a support player, you are the backbone for your team, providing necessary assistance and protection for your allies. It's important to stay positive even when you're losing, to keep your team motivated and focused on the end goal. Encourage your teammates and remain calm and collected even when things aren't going according to plan. A positive attitude can go a long way in helping your team win the game. Also, next to jungle, support is probably the most blamed role in Smite. People like to look for someone to blame instead of thinking about what they could do better, and toxic players will often flame you, especially at lower elos. You can always mute people if they're being unreasonable. Alright, on to the next section where I'm going to analyze a match I played poorly in order to provide some do's and don'ts for the support role. The first of many mistakes I made in this match happened right here. Don't solo buff camps. It will take a lot of time during which you could be doing something much better. It took me 20 seconds to clear this camp, and that was with Kuzenbo, who has above average buff clear. In the meantime, the enemy support had rotated out and helped kill my mid laner. Right after that, I make the same mistake and take even longer to solo clear green buff, while the enemy support continues his journey and rotates over to gank Arcacullen. Do share farm with your teammates. Even if I wasn't there to help mid, I should have just split wave with my Charybdis and had her help me clear the gold buff after. However, it is important to understand that you don't have to share everything. Nobody likes having a farm supervisor. It's good to let your teammates solo their wave occasionally, especially if they're behind. The next big mistake I made was during this teamfight. You can see how I didn't get anything done and ended up dying by myself while my team died. Don't leave your team and dive the enemy backline by yourself. An exception to this might be if you're zoning someone out from a fight. Do play with your team and peel for your backliners. This will greatly increase your chances of success. Later in the game, we had begun to make a comeback and won a fight, which allowed us to take their mid Phoenix. Immediately after this small victory, however, there was a teamfight at Fire Giant where I really messed up. As a support, it is crucial that you do not tunnel vision. We poked out the dodgy and I should have immediately turned to help my backline. You need to pay close attention to everything that's happening so you know when it's time to disengage and peel. You may have also noticed that my build this game was really bad. This was probably my biggest mistake. Don't build damage. You need to prioritize defense and items that will help your team. However, there are definitely some exceptions to this rule. If your build is capping out both prots at 5 items, a Soul Reaver or Spear of Magus might be beneficial. Or if you're the only magical god on your team, it's probably a good idea to itemize some damage and maybe build more like a bruiser. I also built Aegis, which is something you definitely should not do as support. This was a really stupid choice by me and another consequence of my bad build. There are plenty of relic options that are good for different scenarios. Building beads is fine if you need it. After all, you can't support your team if you're dead. And that's it. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this change in format. As always, please subscribe and leave a like if you want to see more, and be sure to tell me what you want to see next.
You know, can't see the grass getting greener 'cause